Hi, welcome to Reawakening Beauty. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. I'm so excited to have you here. I love talking about all things skin-related, beauty-related, and mind-related. Here I empower you, mind, body, skin, and soul. Welcome to Reawakening Beauty. Today we are deep diving into the symptoms of PCOS, which can be acne, hirsutism, all of these things that people don't know that are happening. And I have a very special guest, Dr. Samina, who's blessed me and been studying this for years and years. And we are about to deep dive into maybe why your acne is not going away, signs and symptoms, and how to get tested. She's going to give more of the doctory side. She's a naturopathic doctor. So we're going to get started.
Honestly, I love this topic. It really is what honestly spurred my interest in working with women with PCOS, because I struggled with cystic acne ever since I can remember. So I'm really glad to be here and busting some of these beauty myths, because I think it's really important that we talk about it.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'm so excited. So I'm going to get it started by just asking you exactly what is PCOS for somebody who's never heard about it.
Yeah, so the name in itself is called Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Now, the name isn't honestly the best, I would say, depiction of what we see when it comes to PCOS, because you don't necessarily need to have polycystic ovaries to have PCOS. But when we look at diagnosis of PCOS, we use the Rotterdam criteria. And there's 3 points in Rotterdam criteria. First one is clinical signs and symptoms of high testosterone. So this is the hair loss, excessive hair growth, and acne. So this is clinical signs, and or high testosterone in the blood. So we look at blood markers like free and total testosterone, androstenedione, DHAS, and DHT. But you don't necessarily have to have those high in your blood to, check this criteria off. Even if you have clinical signs and symptoms, you should really consider, checking this part of Rotterdam criteria off. The second is looking at an ultrasound. Do we see multiple follicles on the ovaries? Is there a cyst there? We really want to kind of dive into that picture of the reproductive system. And if that is present, we would, check that box off as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean we need to have that. I'll talk about that in a second. Last but not least is irregular cycle. So either the cycle is irregular or it's not happening at all. And so with Rotterdam criteria, you only have to have 2 out of the 3 to get a diagnosis of PCOS. And so that's what is interesting about this whole thing is polycystic ovarian syndrome. You don't have to have multiple follicles or cysts on the ovaries to actually be diagnosed. So it's really important to work with somebody who can give you a proper diagnosis and support you through that.
Absolutely. So what are the next steps if someone believes they have PCOS?
Yeah, so number one thing, if you think you have PCOS, if you're like, oh, I don't know why my cycle's so irregular, I don't know why I keep getting acne, especially around the jawline, usually cystic, hair growth in every single place you can think of, or like using laser hair removal or electrolysis, and, things aren't really getting better, or, you're seeing your hairline parting and you're seeing this, androgenic alopecia. This is high testosterone hair loss in females. Really consider talking to your healthcare provider to get some lab work done. So we're looking at, your full hormonal picture, your FSH, your LH, your estradiol, and cycle day 3, so 3rd day of your period. We're looking at even your thyroid, looking at TSH, free T3, free T4, looking at all those testosterone markers that I mentioned before, and really kind of diving deep into the lab work. And then on top of that, trying to get an ultrasound and seeing if we do see those polycystic ovaries, so that we can look at both together to formulate a diagnosis.
Okay, wow. So that's quite the criteria and so many amazing things that people can do. And would you say that they can do this right at their doctor's office, or would they have to work with someone like yourself, like a naturopathic doctor, to do it?
So either, actually. So if they talk to their family doctor, they should be able to get blood work done and an ultrasound. As naturopathic doctors in Ontario, we can't requisition ultrasound, but we can do blood work. So if, you need help and support in getting that blood work done, we can also do that for you.
Okay, wow. Super cool. And thank you, because I think you're going to help so many people today. One of the questions I have for you, Samina, is about obviously the beauty industry. Like, that's my background. I wanted to know, like, if someone has excess body hair and they've tried laser hair removal, once they get treated for PCOS, can that go away?
if they use laser hair removal, can the hair go away?
Yeah, or can they use like natural supplements eventually to get rid of the testosterone?
Yeah. So when we're talking about hirsutism, this is excessive hair growth. What we're seeing is that we won't necessarily change the follicle fully unless we remove that follicle first. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense? So basically, like if that follicle has become impacted by androgens, it's going to stay thick until we remove it. And as we remove it, we work on lowering the testosterone in the body. And then after that, you should see, the frequency and intensity of the hair growth reduced.
Okay.
So when we're trying to treat high levels of testosterone in terms of reducing excessive hair growth, what we want to see is we're not going to remove it altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up, like it's still going to happen. You're still going to get hair growth, but it's really what we're trying to figure out and get to is that you're not, having to go and get laser or waxing or threading or electrolysis, whatever you're doing at a frequency that's pretty high,
Okay.
right? Like maybe like every 3-4 weeks seems a little bit more reasonable than every 2 weeks, for example.
For sure.
Whatever your frequency is, we're trying to reduce that. And as we're like removing the hair and doing all these therapies, we're working inside the body. We're trying to figure out where the testosterone is coming from. Is it coming from the adrenal glands? These are the glands that sit on top of the kidneys that release cortisol, our stress hormone. And when we see higher levels of cortisol, sometimes in women with PCOS, we'll see higher levels of DHEAS. And so if we try to work on that cortisol and stress, we actually find the DHEAS comes down and this can get better. The other form that's most indicated when we see hirsutism, this excessive hair growth, is higher levels of DHT. This is dihydrotestosterone. So basically, testosterone gets converted into a more potent form of testosterone known as DHT. And so we're trying to figure out, is it DHT that's high? And there's lots of things that we can do to reduce DHT. Now, what we're really trying to do is reduce the enzyme. It's called 5-alpha reductase. This is what converts testosterone to DHT. So we're trying to use therapies in naturopathic medicine to help, lower the 5-alpha reductase. There's so many ways to do this. So I'm just going to kind of list off a few ways. One big one that we know of in terms of herbal medicine is saw palmetto. Works really great at blocking that 5-alpha reductase. And flax seeds is another good one that you could use here. So 2 tablespoons ground flax seeds daily, because that can actually help zinc, another form that can help reduce that 5-alpha reductase. So typically between 15 to 50 milligrams, depending on what's going on, could be used here. So a few things that you could use there. The other thing is looking at insulin resistance,
Yeah.
because insulin resistance and higher levels of insulin can actually increase testosterone. So if we are able to really work on that piece, we could see potentially a reduction in the hirsutism by, simply what you eat and how you move your body.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. So you're hitting all the topics that I was curious about. So I've heard a lot about food and I have my own
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about it. Like I limit dairy. I've been vegan for a bit, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's like the best diet. Like I've heard dairy can cause certain hormones or it has hormones in it. What would you say
Mm-hmm.
about like that kind of stuff or like foods you're eating and what contributes to more symptoms of PCOS?
Yeah, so what we see with dairy products, first of all, a lot of people are just sensitive to dairy. Like if I was to survey, my population of women that I'm helping, a lot of them know that they are sensitive to it. They come knowing that they probably have a dairy sensitivity. Maybe it is because of the quality of the dairy. Maybe it's because, I don't know, some people think we're not really supposed to be eating dairy products because if you think about where milk comes from and what it's used for growing a baby calf.
Mm.
So, humans have just kind of like taken over the dairy as well in terms of consuming it. But I think there are components of dairy that can be impactful. Now, dairy products can increase something called branched chain amino acids, and this can increase testosterone because what it does is increases insulin, and that makes the insulin resistance worse, and that can cause the testosterone to go up. So something to consider. Another thing is, it actually just aggravates acne for a lot of women.
Yes.
And it causes a cystic acne. And so this was my experience with cystic acne growing up. I was eating dairy because I didn't know. And then when I learned that it was the dairy that was probably a big contributing factor, I'm talking going from like really bad acne. I was using Max Studio Fix just to hide everything, and going to literally most of the time now using very little or nothing, right, in terms of makeup. And so I think it's really important if you have any kind of inkling that maybe it's dairy for you. Maybe you're like, no, it's lactose. Actually, it's probably not the lactose. It's probably the casein, which is the protein in the milk product. That's the issue. And so you do want to try to take out all dairy products and see what happens. Do a test on yourself. Take out all dairy for 4 weeks, put it back in, see what happens, right?
Yeah.
If your skin gets better within the 4 weeks, you know it's probably from the dairy, right? You put it back in and your skin gets a little worse, then yeah, the inflammation and everything that's causing an impact to the testosterone is what is most likely the driving factor for you.
Well, I had a very similar experience because I used to have acne and like rosacea and that kind of thing. And I limited my dairy and it went away. So, is this mostly a symptom of PCOS, or is this just typically like an intolerance to dairy, or does it coincide with PCOS?
I'm not sure. I think it really depends on the person.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a person can have a dairy sensitivity. There are some of my patients who have dairy products and they're perfectly fine.
Okay, very cool. One of the other questions that I have about the beauty industry, and this is something that I've heard some doctors agree with, some don't, so I'd love your opinion, is that fragrances can change your hormone levels. What would you say about that? And can that kind of disrupt your estrogen or testosterone?
I think it's possible. I don't know, like, the exact ingredient. I'm not really like fully aware of like what fragrances have in terms of ingredients and the nitty gritty. But based on what I know is that there's definitely a correlation between, BPA and PCOS. And so we really want to be careful with some of these beauty products that we are using, especially if there is a hormonal imbalance. And, we are sensitive to hormonal changes. I think that's the biggest thing you want to consider is how sensitive is your body to hormonal changes. And if you do feel like you are pretty sensitive, some of these products can be really impactful. I know for myself, like even just changing my beauty products too, I found a world of a difference
Yeah.
in my own body. And so again, it's another test. Test your body, see how it goes, and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, I know, I mean, obviously I'm biased as a naturopathic doctor, but I think natural beauty products are way more better for your skin, the environment, and there's so many benefits of using these products instead of using, ingredients that we have no idea what it could cause.
That makes sense. Thank you for answering that. So, one of the other questions I had is like exercise, and this is something I've heard as well. It's kind of related to beauty and physique and that. Is it true that when you have PCOS, it's probably not as good to be doing as much cardio or HIIT workouts? And how often should someone be working out if they have like PCOS, or is it different for each person?
Yeah, I think it is different for each person, but if we go back to the research, there is so much research out there on high intensity interval training that benefits PCOS.
Okay.
So I think that one of the things that we really need to focus in on is looking at the person in front of us in terms of what they experience when they exercise. What is their tolerance level? How burnt out are they? How stressed are they? Because I think that based on what I'm seeing is the reason why a lot of these, blanket statements are being said about, exercise in women with PCOS is because, to be frank, a lot of women are burnt out and they're overworked and there's so much going on in their lives. And then when they go and push their body even further by doing exercise, that's when they even get even more burnt out. So this is what I literally tell my patients is, what does it feel like after you do that HIIT training? What
Yeah.
does it feel like after you do that workout? Do you feel like great and you can go on the rest of your day and there's no issues in terms of you feeling fatigued, burnt out, want to take a nap after, need to sit down, feel like lightheaded or dizzy or anything like that? If any of those feelings are coming up for you after the workout, the intensity is too strong and you need to bring it down.
Okay.
Then it really depends on the person and their goal. Are they trying to lose weight? Are they trying to, strengthen their body? Because we have a wide range of women with PCOS in terms of body types. And so it's really about figuring out what that goal is for that person. I still think cardio workout is great. Like even just walking, let's just talk about walking on a treadmill. Like that in itself is a pretty, low intensity workout, but it can have massive amounts of effect on blood sugar and insulin resistance, and just moving and pumping the blood so that all that glucose can get inside the muscle cells and be used as energy instead of it being stored into, fat stores in our abdomen is where we see a lot of the insulin resistance type of, weight gain. And so even just walking, I think, is a great way to start. I honestly think if we step back and even just look at what exercise should a person be doing with PCOS, there are specific things and we can talk about that, but just move your body.
Yeah.
However you like to move, just move it. Because a lot of people are just sitting, we're sitting at our desk all day. And so if you can just do something that you actually enjoy doing, A, you're going to actually do it more often than you think you're going to do it. And B, you actually enjoy it. Instead of like listening to something that you have to do the cardio, you have to do the hit training, you have to do this. Just move your body.
Thank you for answering that. And I really agree with that. I think listening intuitively to your body is so important because a lot of us have lost that ability. When you're working with your clients, would you say that there's supplements that everyone with PCOS should be taking, or is it harmful if you're not fully diagnosed to take some of these supplements? Because I've heard about myo-inositol and certain ingredients. Like, is it okay for all women to take that if they feel like they might have these symptoms?
I think if somebody has symptoms, they need a proper diagnosis before taking any supplements, because these supplements can actually do quite a bit of like change in the body. And so you really want to make sure you are diagnosed and like actually understand what's going on, because even just myo-inositol can really impact blood sugar. And we don't want low blood sugar either, right? So it is important to kind of get some help and support around which supplements would be best. But say you do have a diagnosis of PCOS, I think, I say this time and time, I've said this a few times this week, is literally the number one supplement that has been studied for PCOS is myo-inositol. And the reason why is it makes such a huge difference on so many levels. It can help women with ovulation, the insulin resistance. It helps reduce testosterone. It helps support egg quality. So many different components. Sugar cravings, it helps reduce sugar and carb craving. So if there's one supplement that you're like, I don't know what to take, and you're working with somebody who can help support you, like really consider myo-inositol and monitor, your blood sugar to see if everything's okay.
That makes sense for sure. Another question I had for you, can you heal PCOS? Like if you work, or is it something you're kind of balancing for the rest of your life? And what would you say if you could give someone 3 tips in lifestyle changes, what would they be?
So I would say that honestly, it doesn't necessarily go away. Okay. I can tell you by personal experience, by having PCOS, like, my cycles are regular, my skin is clear, my hirsutism is better, and I don't experience hair loss anymore. Which is amazing. But it's, I think it's a fact of, the things that I'm doing. Now I'm human. So I obviously, I have days where I eat more sugar, and things like that I know can impact my body and my mood and my stress and anxiety. But I think that it can go into a state where we don't see some of the symptoms because we are managing it through diet, lifestyle, and, the mind body. So I do think that it is kind of always in the background.
Okay. And there was one other question that I forgot to ask you, and it was about birth control. What are your thoughts on birth control?
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer that second question because I didn't get to. You said top 3 tips on what you would give for advice for PCOS. Yeah, okay, so let's chat about that, and then I'll talk about birth control for sure. So really, I think my number one thing when it comes to PCOS is the diet. Okay, I think that it's extremely important to be balancing blood sugar and insulin. I talked about this morning in another interview, and really, if you can increase protein in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it can make a huge change on mood, your hormones, your blood sugar levels, your energy, your sleep, your
Yeah.
sugar cravings, like just getting in more protein, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's like a lot of times the first thing we're starting with when I'm working with someone who has PCOS, and they come back and they're like, I just remembered you saying protein, protein, protein. And I did it and I feel so much better. Like even just that one thing, like, there's so many things that are going on when it comes to PCOS. Fatigue, maybe there's sleep issues,
Yes.
maybe there's weight issues, maybe there's irregular cycles, there's, hair loss, hirsutism, acne, blah, 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 blah.
And it goes
And
on.
yeah, it goes on and on. And it's overwhelming. You don't know where to start. And I think the number one thing you could do for yourself is increase the protein in the diet. The second thing is making sure you have healthy fats in every single meal.
I love that.
Every single hormone comes from cholesterol. So we need to be making sure that we eat enough healthy fats throughout the day. That's nuts and seeds, good healthy oils, avocados, things like that. That can really help support not only your brain functioning, because most of your brain is made up of fat, but also your hormones.
I
So
love that.
protein and healthy fats. Yeah.
I love that. I couldn't agree more with that. I wasn't eating a lot of protein and I found I was hungry all the time, super sleepy. And then I started to encompass more protein, like from protein powders. I'm trying to figure out other sources like chickpeas, stuff like that. But I did notice I felt better when I had protein. And I'm a big advocate of like avocado, like different things like that. And I love making all my own meals. Like I make flax eggs and stuff.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Yeah. And I think the two other things would be, working on stress and sleep. Is that something that is impacting you? Because if you're not sleeping well and you're stressed, you're not going to have the motivation to eat well or move your body.
Yeah.
So really making that a priority and, trying to sleep at an appropriate time, trying to like keep stress at a minimum as much as you can. Obviously that takes work and time and effort, but I think, supporting your body as much as you can in terms of like calming that nervous system down can really help. And then last but not least is moving your body. Literally in any form, in any way, even just dancing, like do something to just get that heart rate up, pump your muscles. One of the best exercises we have for insulin resistance is using your leg muscles. So like squats, lunges,
Really?
deadlifts. Yeah, because these are the largest muscle groups in our body. And so if we can work on these muscles, the more muscle we build, the more area for storage for glucose to be used as energy.
Wow. I learned
Yeah.
something today.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, just like a set of like leg workouts would really be huge in terms of supporting insulin resistance. So I literally keep like right now right beside me is just 2 5-pound weights, and right beside my desk, and sometimes, in between patients or something like that, just do some lunges, do some squats, do some deadlifts. Like all those things can really help support that blood sugar.
I love that. Well, that's definitely helpful. I will start squatting
Nice.
right after we do that.
Great.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, that I definitely found that helpful for myself. So I know that so many people are going to find that helpful. And
Oh, and then birth control, right?
yes, that was the other question.
Hmm. So the question is, you know, should birth control be used for women with PCOS, or what are
Yeah.
my thoughts, right? Yeah. So I think there definitely is a time and place for birth control. Obviously, sometimes we need birth control for birth control,
Yes.
right? And so I think it's okay to take birth control. It's a very personal decision, and I'm not that person to be like, no, you should never take this; it's going to ruin your body. No, I think it's a completely a personal decision, and it works for some women, and I think it's perfectly fine to be taking some of these things if it helps. Now, what I have seen is oftentimes we know birth control can reduce testosterone, because what it does is it just down regulates all hormones.
Wow.
So that does help to lower testosterone. It's just a matter of like when we come off birth control, the testosterone could naturally come up because you're kind of just suppressing the testosterone that's there.
Yeah.
The other thing is sometimes, depending on the person, not all the time, it can kind of block that connection between the brain and the ovaries. There's this connection where the brain tells the ovaries what to do. And so if we're continually taking birth control, from what I have seen, long term, it can affect that connection between the brain and the ovaries. You just want to keep that in mind if you are going to use it. The second thing is birth control does cause some deficiencies, and one of the biggest deficiencies is B vitamins. So it is really important to consider taking some kind of B complex or something while on birth control, because that can help some of the deficiencies. We need B vitamins for a lot of cofactors. They are cofactors in a lot of chemical reactions that happen in our body to help support our hormones. So it is actually important to be taking some kind of B complex if you're on birth control. It does help cystic acne because, again, it's going to lower all that testosterone. But if, it's not necessarily treating the cause, but it is treating, what's happening acutely right now for you. Also, I just want to mention that it's not getting your period to become regular. So if anyone ever tells you that, that's a complete lie. Because basically, again, what it's doing is you're taking hormone, right? And every single one of those pills. And then when you get to the placebo pills, basically there's no hormone. So it's a withdrawal bleed is what it's called, because you're taking hormones every day and then all of a sudden there's no hormone. And so that drop in the, like the hormone that you have been adding onto the body is going to drop, and then that's going to cause a withdrawal bleed and cause some of the lining to be shed.
Wow.
So it's not regulating your period.
Yeah.
So the only way to regulate your period is coming off birth control. And so if you do want to have children one day, just keep in mind that you may want to come off a little bit sooner so that you can help, get that connection from the brain to the ovaries, get your cycle more regulated in terms of you naturally ovulating.
Okay. And then they want to work with someone like yourself so they know what you're doing.
Yeah, we can support, even like if you're afraid of coming off. I have a lot of patients who come and are afraid of coming off birth control because they have tried before and their skin gets worse.
Yes.
And so, so what we do is we start putting in all the vitamins that could be deficient with the birth control. We add some extra support for lowering testosterone so that when they do come off, we still keep the testosterone low, and we do support helping to get that cycle regular after coming off as well. So there is an approach to be taken when coming off birth control. So if you're worried and concerned about that, it's somebody like me who's focused in on helping to support women with PCOS coming off birth control. I can, be that person too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that question. I think that's I didn't know that again. So I'm learned so much about hormones and birth control. So thank you so much, Samina, for being on the show. Is there anything you wanted to leave our audience with that I didn't ask you today?
No, what? I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think honestly, when it comes to PCOS, I think one of the things can be that it can feel defeating and that everything that you're doing isn't working, or everything that you tried just isn't pushing the needle. And I think sometimes it just is a matter of working with someone like me who can kind of look at everything holistically and figure out what's the next best step to move you and your hormones forward to get them a little bit more balanced.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And where can they find you if they want to reach out and perhaps work with you? Of course, everyone, I'll leave the details of the episodes in the show notes, and you can find it on my platforms. But where can they find you?
Yeah, the first place I would say is Instagram. So my handle is Dr. That's Dr. Samina Mitha, SAMINAMITHA.ND. And so check me out on Instagram. I'm always kind of up and chatting about PCOS there. I have a natural PCOS Facebook group. Yes. That's literally what the name is. And so good. I'm glad. Yeah. So I come on there live and answer questions. So please come join me there. And also I have a website. It's just saminamitha.com. And, I'm blogging on there and constantly talking about PCOS and what I'm learning. So yeah, hopefully you'll join me. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to direct message me. I will personally respond.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to Reawakening Beauty. And we hope that you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Reawakening Beauty. Subscribe to the podcast, hear more inspirational stories and tips related to all things mind, beauty, skin, and soul. I also encourage you to check out the show notes for additional information about my guest, the topics discussed during the episode, and of course, more information about me, your host, Shawna Patruno. If you want to be a guest on the show or just want to reach out and say hi, you can reach me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or email. All these details can be found in my show notes. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing day.